Hey guys. Alright, so the purpose of this video is to take you through the rubric that will be used to mark your paper next week. Not only that, this is the exact rubric that's going to be used when the markers in Matric mark your paper too. So it's quite an important video to go through, and it's quite an important video to save so that you've got this type of content and advice and guidance before you write that big exam that we're trying to prepare you for in Matric. Right, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to take you through step by step each of the criteria that's listed in this rubric and give you a feel for what we as markers are looking for within each of those areas so that you are well prepared, well equipped to provide all the necessary information and structure and formatting, etc., to get all of the marks that you deserve within that paper. Right, so the first thing I want you to notice is that the rubric is split up into two sections. Okay, so we have a lower order thinking section, and that's 60% of your weighting. Okay. Then we've got the higher order thinking section, which is 40% of your weighting. Now, let's start off with format. And format is within your lower order thinking section. And here you've got 2 marks up for grabs, right? So you've got 0 for absolutely not meeting the correct standard. Then you've got 1 for partially correct format, and then you've got 2, which is your correct format. Now, what are we looking for from a format perspective? At the very start, okay, at the very start of your essay, you need to have the following. You need to say to, colon, and then write who you're writing this report for. Then you have from, okay, and that's obviously going to be your name. And you can include the company that you're from as well, but as long as the from is there. Then you've got topic. What specifically are you speaking about within, this essay? And then finally, the date. After that, you leave a line or leave a space and you go straight into your intro. The intro has no heading. Then you move into the body. Okay? Now the body, you are starting to use headings and subheadings and bullets. None of them must be numbered. Okay, so you start using headings here and headings, subheadings. The headings and subheadings, the purpose of them is for easy referencing or easy navigation through the report. So for instance, if you've got if you write a report that's 20 to 40 pages long, someone may not necessarily want to read through the whole thing and they're quite interested in one part of it. The headings make it easy to navigate to that point. Obviously, your essay is not going to be 40 pages long, but we're just trying to get you into the habit of structuring your work so that it's easy to navigate through. It also makes the marker's job a lot easier because we immediately know exactly what's going to be coming in the next paragraph. Right, once you're done with that body section, you move on into a conclusion, no title there, no title, and then finally you sign off. At the end, you leave a space after your conclusion, you sign off, and it would literally just be, you write the word sign off, colon, and then your name. Right, and if you do that, you get 2 marks in the bag. So that should be a guaranteed 2 marks. You then move on to terminology, right? So terminology. Now here, you've got an opportunity to gain 3 marks. So you'll get a 0 if you don't use any business terminology. You'll get 1 if there's isolated or limited use of business terminology. You'll get 2 marks if there's good use of business terminology. And then finally 3, outstanding use of business terminology. Now here it's just essentially writing a report that has a formal feel to it. Okay, that brings across a business terminology feeling across the paper, and using words like economy, synergy, taking a step back, high level analysis, those types of things. As long as it feels like we're reading something that would be prepared for a business setting and there's no colloquial language and there's no slang and things like that, then you should do very well in this terminology section. Right, and then where you get a lot of good easy marks is within content. Now content here is the number of relevant facts. So here it is essential that you have sufficient facts because we're going to mark and we're going to tick all of the things we deem to be factual or factually correct or a fact and then we are going to divide the total number of ticks, and you'll get a mark out of 25. Okay, so a maximum number of 50 facts. If you get 50 ticks, you immediately score 25 marks for the section. So let's read it together. We've got a maximum of 50 facts. We then divide by 2 to get a mark out of 25. Marks are inter alia, given for mentioning the fact, explanation of facts or statements, relevant examples, expansion of acronyms. Note, listed facts that are not explained, maximum of 4 marks for those 8 facts, right? So it's not necessarily just mentioning the fact. You want to explain the fact. You want to give examples of the fact. Nice, easy ways to also give, writing out an acronym, for instance. But if you bullet your facts without an explanation, you get a maximum of 4 marks. So you've got to really prioritize not only giving the fact, but also giving an explanation and building up on that fact. Now, that section is your lower order thinking section, and you get a total of 30 marks for that. All right, so this is where you should really be aiming to bag those 30 marks because they're easy marks to get. Right, now we move on into the business studies paper 2, higher order thinking, and this is the 40%. So this is where we really zone in on your ability to write, ability to tell a story, to tell a compelling story that is loaded with examples, advice, that's loaded with distilling of the important information, so that you move to a point of giving a recommendation that is well thought through, that is well synthesized, based on the information that we've given to you in the brief or in the question, as well as some of your knowledge that you've derived from your theory, from your textbook, as well as from your knowledge that you've derived through reading some of the articles based on the section or the hints that we've been giving you about the essay that's been coming up. All right, so apologies, here come all my emails. Right, so the first thing, we've got substantiation. Okay, so substantiation is the justification for statements made. All right, so if you make a statement, it's very important that you're able to justify that statement. You either do that through examples, you either do that through linking together some of the thoughts that you've made and then arriving at a substantiation. So you'll get no marks if we feel there's no attempted substantiation made. It's just factual, and you haven't been able to provide extra information or justification around some of the things that you've said. If you say to someone, if we look back to the last one, the petrol station, and you say, yeah, it would be great for you to open the petrol station, but all you've spoken about is creative thinking and teamwork without actually, looking at market factors that could lead to the success or failure of a fuel station, then it's like, then how did you get there? So that's like a no attempted substantiation. Then one, very limited substantiation, so we feel it's there, but it's not quite there. Then you've got less than half of the statements are substantiated, so here you get 2 marks. The majority of statements are substantiated. And then finally, 4, the majority of the statements are thoroughly substantiated, showing breadth and or depth of understanding. So we really want to feel not only that you're making a well-justified recommendation, but that you've gone above and beyond in explaining and expanding upon why you feel this is the best recommendation for the firm. Right, moving on to the application to context or the industry. Right, so here, this is where we want to see your understanding of the particular industry at hand through relevant examples, through market dynamics within that industry. So this is where we want to see some of that come through. Now, you'll get no marks if there's a superficial reference, so you haven't really tried based on the case study context given. So you just keep mentioning the name of the business repeatedly without giving examples. And this is where, a lot of you didn't do as well as you could have in the previous test. There were limited examples, that from the industry within petrol stations or fuel stations. And as a result, a lot of you got 0 for this point. So it's definitely something to look at, definitely something to aim to improve for this next test that's coming up. Then you get 1 mark if there's continuous reference is made to the case study, context given, with some applicable examples given. Okay, then continuous reference is made to the case study, context given, with several examples that are fully integrated into the answer. Then 3 examples are relevant to the case study, context given, and fully integrated into the response, showing an understanding of the issues at hand. Reference is made to current affairs. Again, all about your knowledge of the climate, of the macro environment, of the micro environment, of the market dynamics at the moment, of the competitive environment, all those sorts of things, moving into the industry at hand and continuously referencing the case study that we have given you are important to get the marks within the section. And then finally, 4, how do you get the maximum number of marks for the section? So examples are relevant to the case study. Context is given, all right? So you're not only providing examples, you're also showing a clear understanding of what the question is asking and the situation that the client finds themselves in. And it's fully integrated into the response, showing understanding of the issues at hand. Current affairs is fully integrated into the response. So this is a really well-deserved 4 marks because there's quite a lot expected of you in terms of beefing up your answer through relevant examples, through an understanding of the environment, of the industry, of current affairs, and linking all of those things to the situation or the predicament the client or the firm that's asking you for help finds themselves in. So it's very, very well-deserved 4 marks. Right, moving on to creative problem solving. Now remember, all of the essays that we give you or that you're going to write requires you to solve some type of problem. And you're always going to be leading through to a recommendation for the client or the firm to put in hand. So that's where you're trying to get to. Now here it's all about being creative with the problem solving. So for this, make sure you're going through your notes on creative thinking in your textbook, just to help you with the process of creative thinking in order to get to a creative solution. Now there's a possible 6 marks up for grabs here. So if you don't have understanding of the problem and no solution is given, you sort of just waffle through, speaking about things, mentioning facts, but not necessarily saying, right, this is the problem and here's how you can solve it. Very important that you show that you're able to understand what the problem is at hand, and through all of the examples, through all of your understanding, through all of your regurgitation of facts, and through your explanation and expanding on those facts, you lead to a conclusion where you say, right, this is what I recommend, this is why. Okay, and it needs to show some level of creativity. Okay, you get 1 mark, the identification of the problem and incorrect poor solution suggested. So great, you've looked and you've said this is the problem, but this is the solution. The solution doesn't necessarily tie into all of the stuff you've said in the article or in the essay, or it's just a solution that isn't feasible, that it would put the client and the firm into a worse situation than if they hadn't done anything about the current predicament they found themselves in. Then 2, the identification of the problem with breadth but no depth. Okay, so there's an identification of the problem with breadth. So you're like, yeah, there's a problem here with teamwork, for instance, but you haven't really gone into depth when it comes to why it's a problem, how it can be solved. What are some of the tangible, practical things that can be implemented in order to solve that problem around teamwork. Right, 3, you get good insights and understanding of half the problem with solutions offered showing depth of understanding or less than half in breadth and depth. Okay, so there you sort of get in there, you sort of showing a good insight into the understanding of the problem. You've offered solutions, but there still isn't a tangible amount of depth and practicality around the solution that you've suggested. Then number 4, there's good insight and understanding of the majority of the problems with solutions offered showing depth of understanding or half in breadth and depth. So very similar to 3. So here it's sort of an increasing scale, 4 to 5. All right, we're going to mark you based on where we think you fit. And then number 6, good insight and understanding of the holistic problem. Right, so you want to expand on the problem. So yeah, this is the problem. These are the sub issues as a result. This is what the problem could lead to. Then you move into an explanation of your theory, your examples, your justification of statements. You move into a conclusion and you say, right, these are the sub-issues, these are the solutions to those sub-issues, and this is the impact that these are going to have. All right, so you've really got to expand on it. That will get you the 6 marks for this particular section. So it's good insight, understanding of the holistic problem, the whole problem, with solutions offered which are fully discussed, showing breadth and depth of understanding, and that will get you 6 marks, right? So we're through 14 marks now. There's another 6 marks to go, and this is your synthesis. Now, the synthesis is basically how have you pieced everything together, all right? Because there's lots of information. Typically, there's a problem, there's a solution, there's examples, there's theory. Everything needs to be built together into a story. We don't want you to write an essay where in the introduction you sort of introduce the problem, then you move straight into a body that's not linked to the introduction, and then you move into a subheading which isn't linked to the previous heading, and then you move into a subsequent main headings that aren't linked, and there's no flow overall. So this is where we analyze how well you've pieced together your article, how well it flows, is there structure, have you demonstrated good writing ability? That's what we're looking for here. Right, so you get a potential 6 marks, and your 6 marks are based on these 6 things over here, right? So we're going to read each one of them, and if you get 6 ticks, you'll get the full 6 marks. If you get 3 ticks, you'll get 3 marks. If you get 2 ticks, 2 marks. If you don't get any ticks, you get 0, right? So that's how this little area works. Now, the first thing is introduction. You don't just rewrite the question, but shows an understanding of the link between the topics. So like we've been saying, very important not only to understand the problem, but you need to show a holistic understanding of the problem, right? So you say, this is the situation, all right? Then you move into trigger, okay? So you start with situation, then you move into trigger. What does trigger mean? Well, something has happened, something that's problematic, something that needs to be resolved. So situation, this is the client situation. Trigger, this is the problem that the organization or the firm is struggling with, all right? Now, you then need to show, right, in order to solve this problem, these are the areas that we need to look at, okay? That introduces some of the things that you're going to speak to in the body of the essay. So it's situation, trigger, this is what's gone wrong. This is what we're going to deal with in our essay that is eventually going to lead to some sort of recommendation as to how the firm can move on. So it's showing a clear link between the topics. Remember, you don't use a heading. Then conclusion. This should be a logical affirmation of the points raised. So one of the best pieces of advice I've ever been given when I was working in corporate was when you write an article or when you write a presentation or when you give a presentation, you need to follow a 3-step process. Firstly, tell everyone what you're going to tell them. Okay, so tell everyone what you're going to tell them. Then tell them. Then remind them what you told them. Okay, so your introduction, we're going to tell you what I'm going to tell you. Then I'm going to tell you, and then I'm going to remind you what I told you. Okay, so really important piece of advice. And that's exactly what's happening in your conclusion. You're going to revise everything that's been said above. You're going to revise everything that's been said above. You're going to piece it all together, right? So this was the situation at hand. This was the trigger. This is what I've looked at, and these are some of the key findings as a result, right? So these were the problems. These were the sub-problems. These were my key findings. These are how these findings link to the key problems. And as a result, these are the recommendations or the solutions that would work best, and this is why. That's your conclusion, okay? So we've revised or revisited the key points, okay, of the problem, of the sub-problems, of some of the theory that we've raised, of the findings into recommendations, and why these recommendations would work. Sign off. Okay, so that's conclusion, and you'll get your tick if that is what we see. Then flow of thought, paragraphs leading into one another. So remember, when it comes to writing, you need to ensure that you've got an idea or a thought per paragraph, and the ideas need to be linked to one another. So separate your thoughts by paragraphs, but they shouldn't be unrelated to each other. They should lead into one another. Make careful use of your headings here because that can help you structure the article. So if there isn't a clear link between paragraphs, you're probably moving into another section. Okay, good. Then number 4, we've got integration of topics given in the question. So very often you're not just dealing with one thing in your question, you're dealing with multiple things. So there needs to be a clear integration or clear link between the different elements. So, in our previous test, we did creative thinking and teamwork, bringing in the concept of creativity, bringing in the concepts of teamwork. You link them together by showing how creativity could aid teamwork or how teamwork could aid creativity. There needs to be a link. There needs to be an integration. You're writing a single report. You're not writing together different reports focusing on different areas, right? So there needs to be a clear link there. Right, then number 5, integration of question with other business related topics to enhance the quality of the answer. Right, so here, just make sure that you're going broad and you're going deep on different business related topics. I think it's probably sufficient to give a really good pestle analysis or SWOT analysis, where you start using your examples, building on examples, perhaps leading into different industries and maybe examples from different industries and how those best practices could apply within the industry that you're dealing with. Anything that sort of expands, shows depth, shows breadth of the current industry as well as other industries would get you this mark. And then number 6, arguments are developed, right? So an argument in this sense is just saying you've led up to a point of view, all right? So you've built on either using examples, either using an understanding of the current market climate, and a detailed understanding of the problem at hand. But all of those things need to lead into a recommendation. You can't just give a recommendation. It needs to be a sound, well-justified recommendation based on facts, based on theory, based on examples, based on an understanding of the problem, and based on an understanding of the key issues of the problem, as well as how the recommendation could lead to improved business performance for your client. Now, there's a lot to go through here. Okay, that's 21 minutes of me going through it as quickly as I possibly could. I would suggest hold on to this video, rewatch the video, look at it again and again, try and make notes while I go through it to distill some of the key points. And from me, guys, wishing you only the best for the test next week. And if you listen to this again in 2 years' time, wishing you all the best for the upcoming matric exam. We have no doubt you've got this. Reach out to us if you have any other questions.